Hey, we've got a quick live stream here, and I'm out here at the lake house. Wanted to just pop in and do something real simple and see how this worked out for everyone. So I've got a few different interesting things to share with the Fed meeting. Let's go straight into it. I don't know if you've watched or listened along. It could be about as boring as can be. So let me summarize it for you. Things are green. Things are up since the Fed meeting notes and since Jerome Powell took the stage. And so my thoughts on it are there's a lot of bullish sentiment in the market after snapping back all the fears. And so we saw a pretty quick decline throughout the day in the markets, and then everything rallied to be up marginally. But it's positive. It's a good thing to have. So one way to look at it is through the lens of if rates are going to pop back up. When's that going to happen? So let's just look at a few of the indicators here. And we're just looking at CNBC right now. And so you can see the everything popping up and just kind of ending a little bit positive. I think it's a good way to start a weekend. And so we're looking at things kind of normalizing a little bit, and a lot of people still focused on tech, and maybe in my world, thinking about retail and getting into the holidays, I'm starting to see buying on consumer goods increase. I'm starting to see in my world with accounts receivable going up and a lot of that credit being pushed higher. That's what I'm working on right now with my clients, and in the world of, you know, generating more inventory for those consumers. I'm seeing a lot of optimism coming into the fourth quarter. And so maybe that's a specific sector to look at and to pay attention to. I personally am still looking at things like Nvidia being down a little bit lower than what you might expect. The US 10-year being flat, no increase in rates there. And then, of course, Tesla getting a pop just for the fun of it. And so I'm sure Elon's happy about that, and it's going to make his weekend. And so here's a little bit of interesting facts here that's worth looking at. The odds on a 25 basis point rate hike in September more than doubled after Powell's speech to 21.5%. The odds of an additional rate hike this year just hit a 2-month high of 52.1%. So we were looking at much lower odds, much more expectation of a lower rate hike, if any, for the rest of this year. Now we're expecting rate cuts not to begin until June of 2024. And so that's pushing things. You know, this is what this is. My take on it, this is kicking the can down the road. And so we're expecting things to normalize or flatten out maybe farther down the way. And the Fed wants a 2% inflation. It's going to do whatever it takes or as long as it takes to get there. So if your hope or your expectation was for some of this stuff to potentially be a little bit more positive, I mean, the positive thing is that that's not as much bad news. And so that's a maybe a tough pill to swallow, but you know, it's something that there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. And if you, and this is my prediction, if you're expecting rate cuts right before what may be the most contentious election in US political history, then I think you're crazy. I think it's crazy to expect things to, you know, become positive and level out. Maybe I'll be wrong. You know, tell me if this video comes out and maybe a year later you're saying, hey, you expected rate cuts, you know, they happened in June. I mean, I love to be wrong. I love for to be proved wrong in that and have rate cuts show up, you know, next June or even earlier. You know, I'm thinking January, February, that would be a great thing. I think it's impossible. I think it's going to be, you know, not until 2025 that we ever see a cut. So if you're expecting all of a sudden for the rubber band to snap back and you're looking at the housing market and you're thinking, when's the next time I'm going to be able to buy a house with rates in the 4s and 5s? You know, I missed the boat and now they're in the 7s and 8s and I can't get a house. Maybe it'll be that way Christmas, you know, maybe next year we're looking at St. Patrick's Day, you know, trying to look in the housing market, or next summer. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're stuck with 7% rates, you know, or higher. It's going to come back in the new norm It's going to be 7% for a while. I think you're looking at 2025, 2026 maybe until that happens. It seems pessimistic. I don't want to be a pessimist. I want to be an optimist, especially in this context. But I got to be a realist. This is what I have to do, and just tell you what I'm seeing in the markets. And so the next thing here would be just a few takes. Normally, I would never comment on anything political. I think you can go back in the YouTube history for any of the videos that I've put out, and I don't think I've ever put any political commentary out there. But I gotta say, after the lively debates, on the Republican side, and a lot of the commentary, people looking for a little bit of that heat, a little bit of smoke coming off of the those debates when a lot of eyes are on the Republican Party and who's going to be a change maker, who's going to be setting tone. And Sarah Palin's got some opinions, so let's listen into this real quick, and so that I just want to hear your take on it too.
Alrighty. Do you have concern for the country as I do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think those who are conducting this travesty and creating this two-tier system of justice, I want to ask them, what the heck? Do you want us to be in civil war? Because that's what's going to happen. We're not going to keep putting up with this. And Eric, I like that you suggested that we need to get angry.
Okay, I want to stop her right there. Her quote, "Do you want a civil war? Because that's what's going to happen." It reminds me of any time of is this, especially as a parent? Okay, I've got a 3-year-old, and it's like if you see a kid in the car, he's bored, and this happened last night. He's just looking for something to break, and you say, do you want to break that? Because if you keep pulling on that thing, that's what's going to happen. And it's very matter of fact. It's not something where it's like anyone that, if anyone ever tells you that's not a threat, that's a promise. It's like a threat plus. This isn't offering up something like a bouquet of violence. This is literally someone just articulating what they expect to happen. Like, this is, I'm not saying that she wants this to happen. I'm just saying that her language makes it sound like she wants this to happen. So let's go ahead and finish this out, and then tell me in the comments below what your thoughts are.
We do need to rise up and take our country back. Now, I would say the RNC, though, that's what's lacking when it comes to collective anger that can be healthy and it can be useful. Where is the RNC? They hold the purse strings to the party. They hold the funds that could be helping out in this situation. They have the platform, and yet they're too timid. A bunch of freaking rhinos running the thing. So the RNC, they better get their stuff together, or I'll have to ask them too. What do they want as an outcome of this civil war?
The former president being fingerprinted.
There you go. I mean, he's about to dive into talking about, former President Trump being fingerprinted, having his mugshot out there, and her response to that is anger, is whether you think it's misguided or not, is just not a flat out call for civil war, but a repeated rhetoric directing people towards that mindset of us versus them. And that's the big takeaway here, is that there's nothing that can come out of that kind of rhetoric other than division. This is the most divisive way I can think of someone that's willing to talk about leadership in America, and anything, all the dog whistle noise, like calling people rhinos and we will rise up and all this stuff. She's using a few catchphrases from QAnon conspiracy theory kind of community and culture, and it's just kind of it's not surprising. It's just disappointing. Again, I feel like I'm like a parent talking to a kid. I'm not mad at you. I'm just disappointed. I should have expected this, but you've got the reason why I think it's worth even mentioning is because normally I wouldn't even comment on this. I'm like, no offense to Ed, but I didn't know anything about this person. It just popped up on my feed. I've seen a couple of his posts before on Twitter or X or whatever now, but the reason why I felt it pertinent to say something is you've got Sarah Palin coming in and just absolutely dogging on this guy. Just her response was, calling him names. What are you talking about? I bring an Elon into it, and that was just like absolutely the most let me bring in the manager situation. Like Elon Musk is like trying to manage a Chili's and didn't like the way that a seating host or a server spoke to them. So talking about some of these key things, lies, disrespect, and division, this or disruptions and division, this is exactly the kind of results that come out of the rhetoric that she constantly comes back to. And so, I mean, I've never talked about Sarah Palin in my life, but the fact that she comes straight after this guy, and it's like, okay, now I feel like anyone and everyone should be able to come in and comment on this, if anything, just to bring it to attention. Because if I find myself, this is the reason I even bring it up, if I find myself 6 months from now, not worrying about what the Fed's saying and how we're probably not going to get any rate cuts, and we're still going to be dealing with this inflation issue. 6 months from now, where it was really fun when we had an AI bump in the stock market, but then it went flat. I don't think for the next 6 months we're going to be seeing a whole lot of movement at all. It's going to be single digits, hopefully in the positive side, maybe on the negative side, but it's basically just going to be a boring year for the rest of this year. If I get 6 months from now and Sarah Palin has somehow developed more of a platform to only just divide the country further, and only by using this kind of rhetoric, then I'm just going to be beside myself and really upset with myself that I didn't say something. And so all I can say is people calling for a civil war, people using this kind of language as a what I will call a dog whistle, or something that is something that people are using to just stir people up for the sake of clicks, for attention. It's not what we need right now. This isn't the best use of our time or energy. So tell me what your thoughts are. I mean, I feel like I've just beat this horse, down. And so why don't you tell me, in your comments and your take on, is it worth, to a second thought? Maybe I'm missing something. Tell me if I am missing a point to this, as we kind of look through the dialogue here. I'm missing the substance. I'm missing the point at which, this isn't just getting people revved up and ready to be divided. And I think that the worse the election is, it's going to reflect negatively on the economy. It's going to reflect negatively on house prices. It's going to reflect negatively on just, my kids' future. So this is why I'm invested. This is why it matters to me. Tell me, am I missing something? Is there some validity to her comments? Give me a response. And I feel like these are more related than not. I feel like I never thought I would say Sarah Palin, Jerome Powell, are just like somehow two figureheads at odds with each other, throwing out fluffy language that is both unifying and dividing the country in a way that just the result is a flat line. I mean, we're talking about the market's down 1%, it's up 1%, and then at the end of the day, we have 6 months of nothing but boring. And so, that's I got all pessimistic. I got to get a fresh weekend and get a little more positive attitude, I guess, and go just spend some quality time with my family and unplug from all this. But before that, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. If you like this, if you like a little bit more current events, a little bit more news, let me know. Send me a message, drop it in the comments, hit that like and subscribe, and I'll try to do another one next week if this really takes